So I want to display the auctions we've created, and inside the GraphQL folder there is the queries.ts, and one of the queries we can use is the list auctions. So this is going to allow us to fetch the auctions that have been created, and you'll notice we also get some nice features along with this if we want to add pagination. So it looks like there's a way to filter and make this into kind of like a search as well. And then we can limit in page to the next using this next token, which we're going to look at in the future. But for now, we just want to grab all the auctions that we can see or that we've created so far. To do this, I'm going to create a new file, which I'm going to call auctions.tsx. And in here, I'm going to create a new component. So I'm going to call it auctions. And here we're going to call the query component, or render the query component. And this is going to be coming from React Apollo. So let's go ahead and import that. And we're going to be using some types so we can get the angle brackets ready. And we're going to pass in a query. And this query is going to be the one we just talked about. So list auctions. And again, we're going to have to wrap this in GQL. And we get that from GraphQL tag. It's letting me auto import today. That's nice. And then here we're going to pass in the type definition. So in this case, we have variables and non-variables. So I can go over to my API, search for list auctions, and copy that. So I'll paste both of those in. I'm going to import that in the variables and give that a save. Now it's running off the screen, and that's because it just needs to auto format. But to do that, it needs to be a valid code, and that looks good now. And here I can get the stuff from the query. In this case, I care about data and loading. So while we're loading, I'm going to return null. Otherwise, I'm going to return the data. In this case, I'm just going to have a div, and I'm going to JSON.stringify data. And let's see, I'm going to just grab that list auctions. So you'll notice that data is actually undefined by default, and it's going to complain about it. But I know if it's not loading, I expect it to be there. So I can ignore that by putting a bang sign there. And I'm just saying JSON.stringify, that turns that object into a string. That allows me to kind of just see if we're getting data back. And I was going to go see if it showed stuff, but we haven't actually even rendered this yet. So I'm going to come over to app and render auctions below. Give that a save and come take a look at this. And I can see now I get some data. So here is an auction, and we can see it looks like we also get some other stuff there, and next token is null. So there's not a next page to get data from. But anyway, let's go ahead and now render this. I'm going to create a new source auction, card.tsx. Now I'm creating quite a few components kind of just in the source folder. We're going to make this into kind of individual features or group them into folders in a little bit here so we don't get this too out of control. But here I'm going to create an auction card, and this is going to be an interface. I'm going to say props. And here I'm going to take a name, which is a string, and I'm also going to take a price, which is a string. Well, actually, it's a number, my bad. And we're going to just display a card out of those. And actually, I'm putting all this stuff here, but we're going to just copy it from Material UI. So I'm thinking each auction is going to be a card, and I'm going to just use the simple card. So this is in the cards demo. And I'm going to copy it. So let's grab that. And we'll paste that here. And we got our function there. And so I can get rid of this stuff. Actually, I need to import that properly and make this into. I'm just gonna, I prefer doing arrow functions, so I'm gonna change that here. Oops. Auction card. And we'll pass it like that. Cool. And I need to export it as well. Anything else it doesn't like? Oh, we're exporting it down here. Okay, so I'm going to get rid of that part then. And let's rename that to auction card and auction card. Anything else? No, it looks good. We're going to add the props probably in a second here. The interface. Though I'll tell you what. we're passing in this kind of higher order component thing to style this card. And I wonder if I can pass a prop in there. There's probably a way to pass the prop or what the value of the TypeScript props are through that with angle brackets, I assume. But we'll take a look at that in a second. Let's just render this auction card and see what it looks like. So for each auction, I'm just going to render an auction card. So here, I'm going to say that we're going to have a div, that's fine. We'll have stringify, and I'm going to say that, and I'm going to say map. Is this possibly undefined as well? If I hover over it, yep, it's possible. Coming on the bottom, yep, possibly null. So what I'm going to say here is if we're loading, or not data, or not data.list auctions. So any of those things are true, we're going to render null. Otherwise, I'm going to go ahead and map through all the auctions. Oops, looks like I have to say items.auctions. Are you telling me that items can possibly be null too? Oh my gosh. So let's say data.listAuctions.items. So if all these things are true, we can now grab that. Or we can map it. So we're going to say X, and here I'm just going to render an auction card. Auction card. And it's not going to let me auto import this probably because we did a higher order component there, or an export default. So we're going to say auction card, and we're just going to import that regular, or like a default export there. So we have auction card here, and I'm going to say key because we're mapping over, and I'm just going to say x.id. And why does it not know the type? Oh, this is possibly null too. I don't want that to be null. So okay, so I'm just going to assume that this is a thing, because I don't think we're going to have any null auctions. So I'm basically confirming I know there's going to be there. Let's see what that looks like now. So let's come over here. Looks like implicitly has type of any. So I'm just going to explicitly say you have the type of any. And now you're good. Here's what my card looks like. It is gigantic across the screen. And if I create another one, 2, and this is going to be $31, submit. You'll notice it doesn't pop down here below right away. We'll talk about that in a second. You'll notice we have, well, I was thinking we get 2 full screen ones, but it looks like we didn't. We only got 1. I wonder if, let's see if I refresh again. Why do we only have 1 of them? Let's go to the auctions. So I created 2. And I'm just going to say console.log. Actually, it's not going to like that. I'm logging it. And this is getting quite ugly that I kind of want to make it into a regular, not a regular function, but use curly braces. So I'm going to say curly brace here. And I'm going to turn this into an if statement up here. So I'm going to say if any of these things are true, we're going to return null. Otherwise, we're going to return the array of data. And I'm also going to console this. So let's do that and see how many items we get. So I'm expecting 2 items, but we're only mapping 1, or at least only displaying 1. So I'm not sure if it's my UI or my data. So I only see that one. So I'm going to say 2, and this is going to be $13 is fine. Submit. Okay, this is getting created, so refresh, and let's see. Interesting, so it's still only giving me 1. So my guess is that there is a limit, if we look on the auctions over here, that the default limit is probably 1. So we can just pass in what we want the variable to be. So in this case, I'm going to ask for 5. All right, now we get more of them. Cool. Now these look really bad, and what I really want is more of kind of a grid layout. So what I'm going to do real quickly is add CSS Grid and make this a grid. Now I'm not going to go too much in how it works. I'm going to link this below if you want to check it out. We're going to be basically using the CSS it recommends in this article, and we're just going to say display grid and then set some grid columns. So let's grab that, and I'm going to come to my auctions, and this div here we're going to turn into a grid. So here I'm going to say grid, and we need to just camel case this. And it's going to be 10. And I don't think we need this auto rows thing. So right here what I'm saying is we're putting a space of 10 between each item, and we're saying we want rows of 3, each one is an equal fraction. And that looks much better. I feel like we could probably do 4 or maybe 5. I'm going to keep it at 4 for now, and we'll see, maybe 5 is better. Now let's actually change the auction card to take some props and do some stuff. So what I want to include here, so I'm going to say props, and there's probably a way to pass in, so it looks like we're going to be getting in a prop called classes, and it looks like classes includes the styles that we specify right here. So what I'm going to do is maybe I can just get the type of that. So here I'm going to say classes is going to be type of styles. And so I'm saying, well, it doesn't like that because this is going to be classes.bullet, and that's going to be, oh, I wonder if that turns into a string. So I'm going to say key string and string there. I think that's going to work out better for us. What isn't like? It doesn't like that how the props are. Yeah, I imagine it doesn't. So what I usually do here is I just say as any, because I usually have trouble getting the props to be happy with higher order components, so I don't usually bother with them. So now I'm expecting a name, a price, and some classes. I might just remove the classes part because I'm not sure if I need it. So why don't I say card content. Yeah, let's get rid of all this stuff. We don't need all this typography. And I'm going to just say name, which we get from the props. So we're going to have name and we're going to have price. I guess we'll say typography, and we'll just have 2 different typographies, 1 and 2, which is going to be the price. And I'm going to put a $sign in front of it. Maybe we'll turn that into a icon. And I'm just going to get rid of this just for simplicity's sake. And I don't know how much this styling is affecting it or not. And we'll get rid of all that stuff there. And I'm just going to export it like that. Not worry about this class name part. And see what the card looks like with all the styles that they had by default. So in the auctions over here, I need to import this as a named import. And anything else? Yeah, we need to pass in the name here, which we're going to say x.name. And you know what? It's going to be upset on every single one. That's okay. Dot price. And in our auction card over here, I don't think there's any changes we need to make. We're going to change this button to maybe change it to bid, and then we'll make this do stuff later on. So let's see what that looks like. That looks a little bit better. Well, I mean, we can actually see the values. I wouldn't call this pretty yet. And then we can also bid on things. All right, so that is pretty much what I want to cover in this video. The thing that I want to do next is I type some stuff. I create a new auction. I hit submit. I don't see it pop up here, right? I have to refresh to see it again. And I don't even see it there. Why is it not going? So let's try this one more time. Submit. I see it here. I refresh and it doesn't show here. I increase the limit. If I come to the auctions and I increase the limit to 10, and they show up. So let's add another one. Submit, refresh. I wonder if it just takes a second or if it's, oh, you know what? I think I know what it's doing. So let's look at the network tab, and I'm gonna clear this, and I'm gonna just refresh, and yeah, okay. So if we look for, I think it'll either be GraphQL. Let's see what the request is. So I'll explain what I'm talking about in 1 second. So I'm gonna create another one right here. submit. Okay, it's called GraphQL. GraphQL. So all the requests that we're sending are going to be sent, and we can filter through the names through GraphQL. So I can see here's the request that I sent. I can see the response. You'll notice if I refresh, there's no more requests being sent to fetch these items, and that's because they're getting cached. I didn't realize that it is caching them automatically for us, and I think that's what this rehydrated is doing. So I imagine if I get rid of rehydrated, oh, it's going to be mad because we have it there maybe. If I get rid of that rehydrated, does it? Oh, it just won't even. It won't even run. We'll put that back, and now we get more items, and now I can see. Well, I was expecting to see it right here actually. I'm actually not sure. I'm gonna look into this. Basically, what I think is happening is the reason we can't see the item after refreshing is the data is getting cached, and we're not making a new network request. And so we're going to go over, there's 3 ways you normally handle this. So what I want to happen is whenever I make a request here, I want to see the data pop up over here automatically. And there's 3 ways to do that, and we're going to cover those next.